Welcome to the Last of Us podcast, Unofficial Podcast, Episode 3. I am Shellpop,
And
and
I am the Red Viking.
caught you a little bit off guard there. So today we're going to be covering Episode 5 of the HBO show The Last of Us. And I know you posted it on your Twitter, and you sent it
Mhm.
a message. I think you sent a message to me. But either way, uh, I think this is one of our favorite episodes so far.
Yes, yeah, I love this episode so much. I thought the pacing was good. The breaking in the new characters was done a really good. Like I said, pacing was really good. Really, really, really good action scene, which I would say is easily the best that we've seen in this series so far.
Mm.
But I love how they stayed quite true to the video game in this one and didn't deviate harshly on any sort of integral parts. I thought, honestly, pretty much the whole thing was it was practically perfect in every way.
Yeah, like this episode and episode 1 are the ones that I'm like, both are so good in how they presented it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, it's kind of like Uncharted, yeah, going to another Naughty Dog franchise.
Hmm.
Episode or Uncharted 2 and 4. It's like, which one's your favorite? They're both good.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I would say so far this one I would think might be my favorite altogether. I thought how you were calling that a certain kind of infected was going to show up. I thought the what they did. I don't know if it was like CGI or if it was like some crazy, crazy good makeup and costume kind of stuff, but how they portrayed that different type of infected was very well done.
It was a 6'6"
Oh,
guy.
6'6". Okay.
He was
Okay.
6'6", and it was a costume or whatever. It was the whole thing. 80 pounds.
80-pound costume? Holy cow.
Yeah.
Gotta be fit for that.
Like he got up and that was 80 pounds. And from what I understand, that whole scene, like there was no CGI in it.
Really?
That was all trained actors and stunt actors and everything coming out because they were like the amount of effort that they would have to put in for like that type of like that all all that going on, like
Hmm.
you would have so many artists and everything putting up, and it would just take so much time. and
Right.
and so yeah, they just said we're doing it all live, and then like maybe edit it or
Wow.
like whatever, like
So did
clean
they
it up. And
actually have that many people coming out of the hole in the ground? Because that
yeah,
was just like spewing waves and waves and waves of infect.
yeah,
Wow.
they totally, like, they had like, I guess, can't remember which show. They said they got this guy to come, and they put him through like all this training and everything, all the actors, so that they could come up and do all that stuff.
Wow.
So it
That's
so
just that's a lot of people.
that's a lot of people, and it was really good. And so I guess, just because, to flow through and not talk randomly, I guess it's like, so let's start from the first of the show, which really
Right.
starts when the rebels kill all of Fedra off and take over the town.
Yeah. That was a crazy opening. Because it started up, I'm like, what's happening? Like, is this a civil war going on or what? I didn't clue in right away because I was also just full transparency. I was pretty sick when I watched this, so it was even more like intense for me because I'm like, what is happening?
What's going on? Yeah, I've watched
Popped
it
up on all this
twice.
Benadryl and everything. Okay, cool, cool, cool.
I've watched it twice. The second time I watched it was with my brother and his kids because they're really
Okay.
into it. And
Oh, okay.
my brother was like, "Is this like at the same time?" Like, no, it's before.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely got the feeling that it was the before section, but I couldn't place it at first until later on in the show when I can't remember who it was. If it was Henry or someone else was alluding to, yeah, Fedra just got destroyed by a whole bunch of people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Kill everyone. But
Yeah,
yeah, it was. Yeah, that was so intense. And then they kind of show Kathleen with all the people,
all the prisoners. Yeah,
prisoners that were like yeah that obviously were helping the was it Fedra, yeah, the Fedra people. So
yeah, that
so
was
all
interesting.
yep.
Yeah, I actually took a couple notes for that one where I was saying that obviously, you know what, they're still looking for Henry because that was her big thing. Where is
Mm-hmm.
he? And she went with a very patient sort of approach, is how I put it, but very, very passive aggressive at the same time. Where she said in a roundabout sort of way, like, if you don't tell me anything, I'm just gonna kill all of you. But if you speak up, I might spare you. And as soon as she did that, I was like, no, you're not. You're gonna get the information, and then you're gonna murder all of them, which
She
of
did,
course she does. Yeah.
because she's like, well, they're like, are you going to kill up? No, we're going to um, set up a court and kind of find out, like, are you guilty or not? She obviously already decided they were all guilty.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
No remorse, no sort of forgiveness, anything like that. Just, that's it. Done with you.
yeah, so I like, okay, all of you are guilty. We don't care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then she tells Perry, burn the bodies. It's cleaner. Which is just kind
So
of like,
gross.
and anybody that I've heard, like, I've never smelled the smell of it, but when you burn bodies, from
Oh,
what
it
I've heard
reeked
from
high
people,
heaven.
it's a horrible smell.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely disgusting. I've never smelled that. I've, of course, been around like some dead bodies, but more or less they're fresh, so it doesn't have that decaying smell, which I hear that's horrible if you walk into a room or something where someone's passed away like so many days ago or something like that. Absolutely horrendous. So I could only imagine if you get the decaying smell, just fast forward it on a burning sort of smell and the smell of like burnt flesh. I could only imagine it would be absolutely hideous. And when you multiply it by, I don't know, 20 people that were there, would not be any better.
yeah, so it's like, that would be atrocious. But that it was kind of like, shows that Kathleen's, like, she's not a forgiving person.
Mm-hmm.
She's not like, okay, we took over, we do this, we do that, and you find out obviously um stuff as you go, um and that gets on to Henry, where we do find out a lot about why she's chasing him down. um
Yes.
but you kind of see, like, it goes on to him very early, and he gets his brother Sam, and they go and they're hiding in that doctor's area. And that's one of the things that, well, with Sam, that I thought, and they've really talked about it, like, in their podcast and their after show and everything, that Sam in the game isn't deaf.
Yeah, I was wondering about that the whole time,
Sam
but I liked
Sam in
that
the
personally.
show is deaf, and I thought that was actually a
Yeah,
good change.
it was.
Um,
Yeah.
and like Neil Druckmann, and I can never remember the other guy's name, that wrote it,
The other guy.
um,
Yeah.
that were the main writers for it, and they were like, it makes Sam so much more dependent on Henry.
Very true. Very true.
Which really, like, especially for the show where in the game, you're probably with them for, we'll say, like, well, you're probably with them for an hour or two, like,
Yeah.
game wise, depending on how fast you go through their whole thing. But
Yeah.
like that helps you grow your grow your connection and see that they're brothers and they get along and everything. And I
Yeah.
thought they did a really good job. Like, Sam's very dependent on Henry, and Henry's very protective of his brother.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Great parallels between Joel and Ellie's relationship at that point, and then Sam and Henry, because at one point in the show, it is really fun. I just had a good little chuckle with it, where Henry makes the assumption that is father and daughter, and both Joel and Ellie at the same time are like, "No,
no,
that's not my dad,"
no.
or like, "No, we're not related," that kind of thing. And I was like, "There you go, though." So now the relationship from the outsider's perspective is up to the point where people think that they're actually like related. So that relationship has grown exponentially. So I thought that was really cool, kind of funny. What I thought was really great about this episode is we do have the scene where Henry and Sam, they get, I guess I'll just call it, they were protected by the doctor, because as we know in the previous episode with Kathleen, she's interrogating the doctor. So we find out from the, I guess, second scene, where the one guy blabs about everything.
Yeah.
Like now we know why that doctor was in there. It was because of that guy. And then as Sam and Henry are waiting for his return, and it's been a day or it's been longer, they're out of food, they're hungry. That's where, like, we know where that doctor was and what happened to him. So I thought that was really cool. And then how they overheard Joel and Ellie's vehicle crash into the building. They have the gunfight. And Henry gets to see this. So now he's like, oh, there's someone else in here. And that's how they know where to track them down, because they're just so well versed in this city. So I thought just the parallels and putting like thing A to thing B was done in a very clever way. So even if you didn't see episode 4, you would still be able to figure out what's going on. How did these guys find them and all this kind of stuff, right? So that's what made me think this is a great episode.
Yeah, and ultimately, it's also kind of one of the other things that they changed is Henry's. They kind of say he's not a violent person.
Yes,
he hasn't really killed anybody, and as he says to Joel, the most violent that I've ever got is holding an empty gun to your head.
Yes,
like there no bullets in it, nothing. Like it was just like it. You have a gun pointed at you. Your first thing is that's loaded.
Yeah, especially when you're just waking up from sleeping at night. You wake up to these guys just standing over you. Yeah, I would be like, okay, I'm going to do what you say because I'm not going to mess with you.
Yeah, like, this isn't worth messing with you on that. So,
no.
So that was really good. And that was kind of saying, I thought it was good because they said, okay, well, Henry knows the way out of town, but he needs the big brute like Joel to get them out. So that really gives you a reason, like, they have to cooperate together.
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking for a note. I know that I put something. Oh, yes. How, Henry kind of lays out the plan of here's how we're going to get out of here. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go to this place that's been absolutely, what did he say again? Was it Fedra went down there, they killed all the infected. There's no infected down in these tunnels. It's totally safe. And Joel is just like, no place is safe.
Yeah.
No, you haven't actually been there. How do you know it's actually like that? Like, he's still very much not going to trust anybody at their word.
Yeah.
He's very much a guy where it's like, you have to prove this to me. Where's the proof? So, which I don't know how they're going to do that. Are they going to go down there and take some photos, come back and be like, here's your proof. Like, but because Ellie is like, hey, let's go for this, her input is enough to persuade Joel to do something, just like what Tess did to Joel to get him to do stuff as well.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. And I did do a little note of the underground settlement. That scene there where they talk about the comic books, like with Ellie and Sam, I was like, oh, there they are. Those collectibles that we'd go around and Ellie would always make like a big deal about them, you know, in the video game. I was like, yes, you guys did it.
Well, they got that, and they, you know, like they have like the little picture, like everything about that's really going, which I thought was probably one of the, like it's that side story to in the game, and it was so nice to see them actually kind of bring it in and really kind of take what that story said and kind of show like there was, you know, Ish, I can't remember, it was Ish and somebody else, the little picture saying our protectors, and it's Ish, and that's from the game, and the little where when they're playing soccer and kicking the ball back and forth and kind of like play a little bit. You can, if I remember, you can do that in the game. I don't remember for sure if you can actually. I know you, pretty sure you can kick the ball, but you know, obviously they take out some stuff in there because game was a little different. But I did like that part, and I thought it was very important. And they really talked about, gosh, what's um, oh, the it was what was from the comic book, and she learns it.
I didn't write that down, but I know that they had that part where they were saying, I have these comics, and then the other person has those comics, and they were just kind of combining it together. But I can't remember the name of them. By the way, the game is on sale right now.
Oh,
I got a notification. I got an email because I have The Last of Us Part 1 on my wish list, and it's on sale on PlayStation 5. I think it's like 20% off. And I was like, come on, like
20%.
Give me a little bit more than just saving like $5 or something.
Well, I was talking to my one of my nieces, the older one, and you know, and she turned 16 in like a couple of weeks. She's like, I've really been kind of considering playing the game. And I'm like, well, I got it on the PlayStation 4, because they had the original game on the PS3, and then they, you know, cleaned it up and everything for the PlayStation 4, and then now they've completely redone it again for the PlayStation 5. Like,
I was looking it up. There's like new costumes that you can have for Joel and Ellie, and of course their photo mode is like crazy expansive now.
Yeah.
And then other little tweaks, like the AI is supposed to be a little bit better, so it's a little bit harder to sneak around. But yeah,
well, she'll probably still be playing it on easy, but
true. I just remember when I was playing, like the one small complaint that I had was Tess or Ellie or whoever is with you at the time.
Oh, they changed how she looked.
Sneaking. Yeah, they changed how they look, but also they're not going to be out in the open, and the AI won't see Tess or anybody like that. Instead, they'll be hiding with you much better. So
that would be good for that was always a problem with the game, but I think you know, that was just the limitations of, well, especially probably limitation of the PlayStation 3. Like, it just couldn't do some of that stuff. And I do wonder if they took, because I haven't played it. Maybe I will. You know, now that it's cheaper and whatever else. But I wonder if they kind of brought in some of the stuff from how they did in episode 2, where the people are more like, which, you know, like what they originally showed them doing in the.
Because it did add a couple things from The Last of Us Part 2 into part one,
Yeah,
like
add
those
stuff to
AI
the AI.
changes. Yeah,
Because
but it's
that
still
would
the
be
same
interesting.
story and all that. Yeah,
Yeah, and like I said, they might not do that, but yeah, if they kind of upgraded the AI and so that the characters will do that, or they'll know, they'll call out each other's name or whatever else. That, really, like, that was the one thing with, two, is like playing the game, you almost feel more like you're in the living, breathing world. And
yeah. Where I didn't want to actually kill some people because in some games you don't have any remorse. It's just like when you're watching the TV show, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, they're dead, they're dead. It's okay. But in the games where like, please don't kill me, I have a family or whatever, or they start pleading with you. It's like, I kind of do want to save some of them, but then you do, and then they turn around, and they try to kill you again. And it's like,
yeah,
oh,
well, it's kind of like well, the episode 4 where the guy comes in, he's like, no, 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 please, 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 leave me live, let me live, and like,
yeah,
scared to death. And Joel knows, it's like, okay, if I let this guy go, like, even if he doesn't kill us right away, he knows my face. He and he's going to go, and like, I'm already going to be hunted. Now it's going to be worse, and so it's just like, the guy's done.
yeah,
So, gosh, yeah. So now we've gone through, the town, the sewers with Ish. Obviously, there was one part in it that, especially when they first went down, and Henry's like, "See, it's okay," and like really loud, so it's like echoing. And
oh yeah,
I'm like, with Joel, it's like, "Shut up! I will kill you."
yeah,
like,
yeah.
don't
Or
do
when
that.
Sam goes to try to open that door that has the big mural on it, big
Oh,
painting, and Joel's like, no, no, you don't go first.
like, you don't go first. We're gonna make sure that we're okay. And
Yeah,
because it's like, he doesn't trust that there's no zombies down there, no clickers and runners and whatever else. Like, he doesn't
yeah,
trust that. Um, especially because Henry doesn't have any firsthand knowledge of it. It's all, well, the one guy, the Fedra guy, told me that they cleared it out.
yeah. It's just blind trust or faith or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. So, that's just really good. But then it goes to, um, well, and I thought that it's a very important thing when Henry tells Joel why Kathleen's hunting him down.
Yeah,
And I'll let you take the lead on this one, but if you remember why she's hunting him
yeah,
down.
yeah. So, in a nutshell, what Henry did is he handed over Kathleen's brother. I believe it was. I believe it was brother, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, over to I can't remember who it was.
To
It was the
Fedra.
bad guys. To Fetcher, that was it. And then obviously the guy was killed. Now we go over to a scene of Kathleen talking to Perry about her experience with this. Why Henry is the number one person that they have to hunt down, as opposed to basically doing anything else. Because Perry's starting to question it a little bit, but he still has absolute faith. Like, hey, we're going to do whatever you say. You are still the head honcho here. So we got your back no matter what. We trust you. But what was interesting is Perry was like, well, what would your brother think about this? And Kathleen did say that her brother does forgive Henry for what he did. Like, he gets it. He gets why this happened. But Kathleen's like, but I'm not my brother. So I'm not going to let this happen. Now, going back over to Henry, Henry's telling Joel that even though he hasn't physically killed somebody, he does feel the guilt for what he did, and that he still has blood on his hands for the events that unfolded. Which is obviously, this is why he's on the run. This is why he doesn't feel good. But at the same time, he's very much a pacifist. He doesn't want anyone to be hurt or suffer. So that's where we're at for that. The big thing though is Kathleen is not like her brother, and even though her brother was saying like we should forgive him, she's like, no, no. Henry killed my brother, so therefore he is guilty. We're gonna hunt him down. We're gonna find him, and he's dead. He's dead, basically.
It's one of those hard things, and I like on their official podcast they call it kind of like a zero sum, like
Okay.
um so it because it's the thing that I find with The Last of Us, especially like you see it how the show ends, but it leaves you with that what would you do question all the time.
Right.
And like Henry saying, I needed a drug to help my brother because he had leukemia, and to get that I had to turn this guy over.
Right.
Which is kind of like you have to think about it like in your life. It's like, would you guarantee that somebody else was killed, so that you
Yeah.
could save a loved one's life?
And you know what? I think a lot of people would do that because you're going
Yeah,
for somebody that you don't, that's not family. So you don't have that attraction or connection with them. But yeah, if it was my brother or my wife or, it's just like immediate family, but I know that this cure will save my family member's life. I'm sorry, if some people say they wouldn't do it, I don't think you're really telling the truth, because if you're in a desperate situation like that, people would probably take it. Because if it's a one for one, and if you don't get the cure, your family member is going to die anyway. I'm
yeah.
sorry, but I think a lot of people would take that. So a lot of people could really feel for Henry in that situation.
And I think the other thing that was interesting is that uh, Kathleen's brother was the leader of the rebels, and
Yes.
she took over once he got killed. And obviously, she's much more aggressive than he ever was, because he was like, forgive, 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 forgive. And she
Yeah.
gets her brother, her brother gets killed. And so she's like, we are killing all of them. And
Yeah, because what
um,
did forgiveness ever do for someone? They're not
yeah.
here now.
And I think that's where, gosh, Perry, her, like he's that first one. And that's where he's, he kind of says to her, he's like, your brother didn't do anything to get us here. You did it.
Oh,
We are
yes.
here and we are free, because it sounds like it was pretty bad for them. Like we are here, we are
Probably.
free to do this because of you. And I think that's where he has so much respect for, is like, you know, we were constantly getting beat up and whatever else by Fedra,
Yeah.
and now we're free to live our lives again. And um and so it's like that other thing, it's kind of like, okay, well, if you were Kathleen, and your family member got killed and they said forgive, it's kind of like, which person are you? you know
Yeah. Yeah,
and
exactly. It's
and
it's hard to say what would happen. Like I would immediately be like, no, I would go with what my family members say, because I would kind of haunt my last memories of that person, and I would love to do whatever it is that they asked of me to do. Within reason, of course. But to forgive, I mean, I would try. It would probably take a really long time, but I don't think I would do a manhunt for one person,
yeah,
like how Catherine was kind of obsessed with revenge in that scenario. But
yeah, like I don't
yeah,
I would probably be like, okay, when like Perry's like, well, we got people on the edge of town and everything, they're not leaving, like,
yeah,
like we got other things that we have to take care of, because they already knew, hey, there's
exactly.
something underground that we got to take care of.
Yeah, which, at the end of the last episode, she's like, yeah, just, evacuate the building, just like kind of seal it off. But whatever. No big deal.
Yeah. and
It's like,
so
no, you need to deal with that.
um
But yeah, that was pretty much that whole conversation that Henry had with Joel and then Kathleen had with Perry there, which gave a lot of understanding to us as the viewers of this is what's going on, and now what's going to happen.
yeah, it brings a lot of what's going to happen, and like what's going to first it asks what would you do. Now this is what the
Mm-hmm.
characters have decided to do. Now let's move on with the story.
Yeah.
So now you get out of the sewers, or out of the whatever,
The tunnels there.
the
Yeah.
tunnels, and they're out. And that it's the one thing that I liked, and they changed things a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
the sniper.
Man, yeah, the sniper was great. I loved it.
Yeah,
I just laugh at it because I just think of like some Star Wars connections here. Of he has terrible aim. He's not going to hit me. But you guys stay here. But he's not going to hit me.
yeah. It's dark outside, and he has terrible aim. And so
Terrible aim.
I'm going to get there, which I thought, like, that's one in Joel. Ellie's like, no, don't leave us, don't leave us, don't leave us. You'll get killed. And he's like, do you trust me?
Yeah.
And it's another, like, very important, I guess, growth in that relationship between Ellie and Joel, that
Mm-hmm.
she has to say, yes, I trust him to be able to do this.
Yeah.
Um, in the game, like in the game, it's daytime,
Yeah.
and the sniper is not only a much better aim, but also he's antagonizing you.
Yeah, this guy you don't. Yeah, he doesn't say anything while they're still outside.
Yeah, and so that's one change to it. And so it's like, and then there's other guys there that you have to kind of take out before you uh, go into the house and take out the sniper. But this
Yeah.
one, he just, he's able to get down the street and get behind the sniper. And it's one thing that they pointed out in their in their official podcast, and I thought that's so deep. Is they had this old guy, probably in
Yeah.
his like 70s or 80s, you know,
Yeah.
and he's sitting there, and he's been shooting at him, and Joel holds the gun to him and says, "Don't, don't do it. Just put the rifle down, kick it over to me."
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Joel was practically pleading with him. Like you could hear in his voice, like it's kind of breaking. Like, please don't make me do this, man.
but they brought up a thing like, Joel sees that this guy is like, they kind of say like everybody in this world would have seen hardship, and this guy, like, probably being in his 70s or 80s, had 30, 40 years, or like, well, probably 50 years in a normal world, and now everybody he has is probably dead.
Yeah.
And but then they kind of say, um like, when people say, oh well, suicide's the easy way out, and they're like, no, it's not. Like, the other way, and that's where they're kind of like, the guy is kind of like doing, like, they kind of say, some people do it here, it's like they don't want to kill themselves or shoot themselves or something like that, and so they'll go do something and purposely try to have police kill
Oh, gotcha.
them.
Yeah, that was his way of doing that.
And I've heard that, like, I used to do design uh, gun ranges.
Yeah.
So people, police would go train there, and military would go train, and I set up those things, and I talked to, or I had some police come by and everything and talk about stuff, and just that people would purposely try to have police kill him. And so you look at this guy and he sees Joel
Yeah.
and he's just like, I want out of this so bad. But he didn't have the courage to basically he didn't have the resolve. I shouldn't say courage. He didn't have the resolve to just off himself, because that's
Right.
hard. Like it's not an easy thing to do, and usually like when people go to that point where they like even like you've probably seen it, like if you've helped like older people,
Hmm.
and there's a point when they just kind of come to peace with it in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Hmm.
And it's somebody that goes to the point where they actually commit suicide have almost convinced themselves that they're at peace with it. But if you haven't
Yeah.
come to peace with it, it's like, I don't want to do that. Like, you haven't gone that far. Like, to just say, like, I would like this over with, but I don't want to do it. Like,
Yeah. It's a brutal thing. It's a brutal thing.
and
Um,
so that was something
yeah.
that was very, like, they purposely, like, they said that they did that on purpose. It's just kind of like, here's this old guy. He, his sight's probably mostly gone. He just can't do much. He doesn't want to be here anymore.
Yeah. His house is falling apart.
Yeah, and
Yeah. A whole
so
bunch going with it. The only thing that he did do though was he had that little walkie-talkie, so he did relay it in. These guys are here. Then he turns the gun on Joel. Joel has to shoot him,
yeah,
and now we have everybody just running to this house now as fast as they can, because this is most likely where Henry
yeah.
and Sam
We're
is. So
we're almost. Hey, I can't remember what the guy's name is, but they're like, we're almost there. We're ready. Like, just don't worry. We're almost there. We're almost there.
oh yeah, yeah,
And
just hold them off for a little bit longer. We'll be there. Yeah,
so it's like now they're getting chased away. They're getting all that. Um, so Joel obviously starts shooting the rifle.
yeah. He's got way better shots. I mean, it still took a few to take out the lead vehicle that was kind of like a plow, to push
Yeah,
all the other abandoned vehicles off the road so that they could get down to the house there. But yeah, it takes a few shots. Finally, Joel manages to snipe I think it was a girl that was actually driving it.
uh-huh.
That vehicle veers off, smashes into a tree or no, it was a building, wasn't it?
It was a
I can't
house.
remember what. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was a house.
it was one of the houses on the street.
Boom. Big fire and everything happened. Everyone else is starting to get there, and then all of a sudden it starts to sink.
Yeah, like
Or no. Actually, let's
for
rewind it a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
rewind, because what it is like Kathleen gets there
Yeah.
and is like kind of like knows that Henry is close,
Yeah.
and she's kind of antagonizing him. Like
Yeah. Yeah. She was shouting out some stuff, and Henry felt like there was no hope to get Sam and Ellie out of this dangerous situation. So he decides to turn himself in. And then
and
that's where Kathleen seemed kind of surprised actually that Henry did that. She's like, "Oh, here he is. Okay."
well, and you look at it, he's like, let the kids go. And what's her answer to
Yeah.
him? No.
I don't remember. No. Okay, that was
She
it. I was
says
thinking like, I
no.
don't remember.
And he's like, they don't need to die. Kids die all the time. Like that
What a
was
horrible
her.
person.
She's just like non-forgiving. Like, these people came in, they killed our people, this and that, blah blah blah. Like this is gonna go bad for you no matter what.
Yeah.
And then as she's getting ready to kill Henry, that's when the
Yeah, the
ground
vehicle just sinks into this
crumbles under
huge
the
and then tens or hundreds of them come out.
Yeah.
And then one really, really big one comes out.
The bloater comes out, which
Yes.
I was kind of guessing that's what they were going to do. And honestly, I thought it was a very good use because it's like they had to get them chasing down. They had to have that closure for Kathleen, not just like, hey, we got away scot free or something like that. But they had to get that closure, and um, and so that them coming out, all the runners and the clickers and everything coming out
Yeah.
was that, well, the opportunity really to make the show go the way that they needed it to.
Yes. Yeah, I thought it was great. I was sad that some people died off, like Perry, for example, but he did a very noble sort of death, I guess, where he's like, okay, get out of here. I'm going to deal with this.
He tells her to run. Yeah, he tells Kathleen to run, and then promptly has his head ripped off.
Yeah, that was nasty. That was gross. I can't believe it. But it was a great way to get the viewers and everybody to be like, no, this thing is a bad, bad monster that you just do not want to deal with. So if you can help it, run. Bulls don't really do much against it. As he unloaded, like, I don't know how many clips.
A whole clip into it of not just like a 22 bullet, but like a fully auto rifle. Like that's a pretty heavy bullet to shoot into something, and it just kind of like whatever.
Yeah, it didn't miss a beat. It just came up to him, grabbed him, and like you said, just made sure that there is absolutely no way that we could expect to see Perry come back around at some point.
Yeah. So Perry's gone, and it was probably one of the things that almost was creepy. And it was when Ellie's trying to get away, and there's the teenage
she goes into the vehicle. Yeah, she goes into the vehicle, thinks she's kind of safe, and that clicker hops into the back, screams at Ellie, and
so it's kind of funny. Like they were doing all this stuff, testing for people to come in, and this girl is like a contortionist, and they said just the stuff that she did was just creepy in itself. So here she comes in, and she's like flipping and doing all this stuff as she comes into the truck. Like it's just kind of like, it's not, oh, I'm going to crawl in. It's like she just kind of
like folds herself
into it, and like to go through. One of the things that they also said, like, and they said they did this because of Kathleen in some ways, because it's the same clicker that kills Kathleen. The girl has a Blue's Clues shirt on.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I did not even notice that.
So they kind of tried to say, hey, this is both ways.
It's karma, right?
Like this is youth. Like she just said, well, kids die, so she gets killed by a young child clicker, and then and it's just that, but as they go away, and it was just an interesting. That whole scene was just so well done, and I guess they had to do it. They decided we're going to do this at night, because clickers are cooler at night. Fire's cooler at night.
Fire looks way better at night than during the day.
And it kind of fit for the sniper, like having a hard time hitting Joel. Like he's already a bad shot. He's old, and it's nighttime, so he can't really. He can see slight movement, but he can't really see anything. And so I guess they filmed it. It was a couple of weeks that it took them. Wow. I think it was like 3 weeks that it took them to film all that. And they said like they were really, it might be longer, but they were really hesitant to do that because like people can go crazy when they start thinking like when they start that when they start that process of working nighttime, it can drive people
Oh,
crazy because it's off your system and it kind of and they
it
work
messes
long
everything up.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, no, I can relate to that. What I thought was really cool with the scene though is Joel was protecting Ellie the entire time.
yeah.
He shot that vehicle to get that, I call it the rammer, off the road from trampling them really. And then as Ellie was trying to escape from the teenager and everything, he's shooting everything. Like wherever Ellie is going, he's pointing his gun, he's watching, and he's picking off all these infected that are getting close. But what he doesn't do, which I thought was really interesting, is he doesn't necessarily protect Henry and Sam.
Yeah.
He wasn't shooting them off of that. It was Ellie deciding after she got out of the vehicle, made a mad sprint to go save those two guys. That finally Joel is like, okay, fine. I'll put a couple bullets into these ones that are attacking them because Henry and Sam are hiding under this vehicle, I believe. While these other infected are like trying to get them, and Henry and Sam are like kicking them away, And it looked like if there's no sort of intervention, they're done. They're absolutely done for. So I thought that was really cool, though. It kind of shows like Joel is still closed off to a lot of people, and he's not going to go ahead and just trust Joe Blow at all. Even after you spend like a whole day together and one person opens up to you, he's still closed off, not thinking, I have to save this person or I have to protect this person. But with Ellie, he was picking off like everything near her, which made me go like, dang, you got a good shot, Joel. Great shot.
Yeah, he was taking out a lot of people. Yeah, in Mud's Ice comment, can you see his comments on here? He's just like, he worked overnight, and he's like, it sucks, but after a while you get used to it. But yeah,
fair.
that
Totally fair.
I would agree, Mud's Eye. Yeah, if it's just become a part of life, you probably get used to it. But yeah, if you were just kind of suddenly like, hey, we want you to work nights for the next 3 weeks, and it's going to be, like 12-hour days or something at night. Yeah, you'd probably eventually you could easily go crazy with that one. But
Oh man,
yeah,
brutal.
late night stuff when you're not used to late night. But yeah, so um, yeah, it's Joel he was definitely um, keeping Ellie safe and yeah, and showing that he's got a good um, he's good at aiming. Like he's good at shooting. Like he's not.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh, so um, so then we kind of get to the last little bit of it, the very emotional
Yeah.
part of it. Ellie's very much like the big sister to Sam at this point. She's really built up a um, a friendship, a relationship type of thing with Sam, and she communicates with him, obviously like on his little pad and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I always thought that was so cute.
And I thought it was really cute because she's just so excited, but it comes to the point where he asks her, because he knows that he's been bitten and he trusts her.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of like really important parts that come along at this point. Is he asks her, "Are you afraid?" Like, which is kind of that trigger to, I think, Ellie, like something's wrong.
Yeah, and I love how she played it off where she would kind of jokingly be like, no, I'm not afraid, or yes, I'm always afraid, kind of like the
I'm
Hulk
always afraid
being like,
of scorpions.
Yeah, she's just kind of spinning everything,
And so yes, so that was an interesting thing. And then And then there's, like, it's just that sequence that he shows her his uh where he was bit and
Hmm.
how that's growing, and then she shows him hers and says, my blood can help you, and
Oh, yeah,
um
yeah. My
part
my
of the
blood is medicine.
yeah, and so a lot of people, and it was interesting, they actually said they did that to prove that it doesn't, because like people playing the game are like, well, why doesn't she just take her blood and put it on people and it would heal them?
Yeah, do a blood transfusion on everybody that she ever comes
And she's
across.
like,
Yeah,
it doesn't work that way, like it just doesn't,
yeah,
it doesn't, they're like, this, it doesn't work that way, and so it can't. And but at the same time, it's Ellie trying to save somebody that she cares about,
yeah.
and ultimately, and that was the interesting thing. He's like, stay up all night with me, and she obviously falls asleep in the chair,
Hmm.
because that's what everybody does when they're like, I'm staying up with you for sure. um, they fall asleep,
Yeah,
uh, and
it's such a sad scene.
um, but she gets up in the morning, and he's sitting there, and she knows he's deaf,
Hmm.
so she's thinking, maybe I did save him.
Yeah, yeah. He's just
And
sitting up at the edge of the bed, looking out the window.
yeah, so because he's deaf, and so she knows he's not going to hear her when she says, hey, like, you up, because his back's to her. So that's when she
Yeah.
goes around, and he's like, ah, and goes after her. And
Hmm.
they kind of say, hey, there could be, like, at that point, because he's like, are you still you when you're infected? And they kind of
Oh
say,
yeah, is there a little bit of myself still in there? Yeah.
and they're saying, like, I think there was a couple of things in there that in their official podcast they're like, maybe there is, for the first little bit, that it's almost like a bad dream where you can't control yourself but you can still
Mm,
see stuff. um but they're like,
creepy.
but like, we don't know, like, how creepy would that be, to be like, like, you're almost in a dream and you're
Hmm.
just going after people and like craving to kill somebody, like, or like, not craving, but your body's just like, I'm going to go kill someone. and
Yeah.
and so that's when, like, this whole sequence just is one of those really, really emotional ones, is that
Hmm.
Joel goes after the gun first and Henry gets to it first,
Yeah.
and but because he's just closer, and the first thing he does is he wants to protect Sam, even though he can tell something's wrong, and
Yeah.
so he shoots at the floor by Joel to say back off.
Yeah.
um, and um, and then he um, and then he kills Sam himself. Yeah, and then, like,
Yeah.
like, it goes to, like, and this is what's hard about the game a lot, and I think it goes to something that Ellie said to Sam the night before, when she officially kind of said, this is what my fear is that I will be left alone.
Yeah.
And this goes into something that I've kind of thought about for a while, um, and it kind of works almost for everybody. But it's like, if you don't have something that you're working for in life,
Hmm.
like a loved one that you're trying to take care of, whether it's, like husband, wife, children, a parent, or something like that. And so it's like, like, you have a job or something like that. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
life can, and it's like, all everything you're doing, it almost seems just purely for your own self, like, you're not doing anything for anybody else. It's like, after a while it can get really dry. and really kind of like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't see the purpose in it. Like honestly,
Yeah.
that's as I was thinking, like like after I with my work, I was already kind of getting blah with it,
Hmm.
but like over the past year, like after my mom died, like I was like so like okay, well I'm helping my mom take care of bills, I'm helping my mom take like keeping her entertained and everything, and then she goes away and I'm kind of like, so why am I doing stuff?
Right.
and
Right. Yeah.
so you look at Henry, and and Joel kind of talks to him about that too, and you look at Henry and he kills his brother, and immediately like the person that I have been trying to keep safe for years now,
Yeah.
I just shot and killed. And I don't say everybody would do this, but he freaks out
Yeah.
and immediately
Massive
is
panic.
this, yeah, and kills himself.
Yeah. Yeah. It was so sad that that happened. Man, if I was in that situation, I would try so hard not to let that person do that. Because after you calm down, you start to process things. Like maybe you'll realize that you don't have to do that. You could have this new family of Joel and Ellie, and you could be like the middle person between them, right? But yeah, he just panics, questions a lot of stuff right away. Like I can't remember what he said, something like, "What did I do? What did I do?" or something like that, and then does what he does.
Yeah. So
It
yeah,
was it was really really sad, but yeah.
yeah, but yeah, it was like, what do I do now? And
Hmm.
that is such a hard thing, especially like after it's like even if you're just barely losing somebody, it's what what do I don't know what to do.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, and actually, one other thing that I wanted to point out is what you're talking about earlier of how a lot of people have a hard time with, figuring out some sort of purpose. When a lot of people retire, a lot of people actually die within the first few years of retiring, and it's not because of what many people may think of. It's because someone lost their purpose, and they
mm,
kind of just go into like a heavy depression, don't do anything, because once you stop, exercising or you're doing anything productive where you think you are creating this good impact on the world, depending what you're doing in life, right? That's usually what ends up happening is their health just deteriorates because it's kind of like their heart is lost, not even broken, but just lost entirely. So yeah, so it's
yeah,
one of those things where it's like there's a reason why some people say, "Oh yeah, when you're a retired male, go play golf or something." It'll give you something to do for a few hours every day. But in reality, it's just good to like give yourself a hobby, do something. You know,
well, yeah, it's
yeah.
very much like well, like I've seen it, like obviously, like you see it throughout life with people, but yeah, when people lose their purpose, and I think that's sometimes what happens to people that are older,
Hmm.
is they've lost all their friends. um yeah, as Mudza kind of says, like one person passes away, and then another person, the
Yes.
partner doesn't take much longer to pass after that. I actually
Yeah.
had a neighbor growing up that the wife was going to dialysis, like
Oh
on
yeah.
a like on a very consistent basis, and then she um uh well, he was out working in his yard, and one of my other neighbors found him. He was working on the sprinkler system and had dug a
Hmm.
hole, and my neighbor found him head first in the hole. He had a heart attack and passed away.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Um, because of that, like with everything, his wife, she was just like, I don't want to do dialysis anymore and whatever. And she was gone within a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You know, she was gone pretty quick. And so, yeah, it's just kind of like, and honestly, like I look at like my mom, you know, she went for 10 years without my dad,
Yeah.
but you know, like you could just tell, like she just always wanted my dad around. And like
Yeah.
I was a good, you know, since I was helping her out and everything, because yeah, yeah, a lot of things just kind of happened. So I was living with her for a while, but um, she kind of just gave up. Um, and I think in some ways, like a lot of stuff that she went through over the past, yeah, before she died, um, she, um, I think in some ways she almost kind of brought on herself, because like the doctors when she first got ALS, they're like, well, you have this type of ALS and you'll go for like a good, you know, like most people don't die from this type of ALS.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, it really doesn't. Well, she just kind of gave up, you know, and I think she was just, she missed my dad. She wanted to be with my dad. And,
Yeah.
um, you know, and it's kind of hard to, you know, like say to people like, well, this is what she wanted, but that's kind of what it was. But, you know, like it goes into that, like, you know, Joel has a purpose now.
Yeah.
And, you know, Henry had his purpose and he lost his purpose and immediately like went into panic mode.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had been able to get him out of panic mode, maybe Henry would still be alive, but then he'd be constantly looking for a new purpose. That's where
Yeah.
his life, at least for a while, would be looking for a new purpose and coming to terms with losing his brother and being the one that had to shoot the infected body. You know, like,
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
um, yeah. So Mudzai's kind of commenting he went on the same funk, except for his mom died first and his dad died roughly 10 years after his mom. But yeah, it's hard. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is getting into a whole other like more me topic. And but yeah, it's really that you know, it's a really hard thing. And then it also goes into, and they talk about it in the podcast, and I really like listening to their official podcast too, just to get like, hey, this is why we did stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is uh, they're digging the graves and burying uh,
Oh, right.
Sam and Henry. In the game, they don't do that. They just move on, and it kind of is like, hey, we're on to the next era or the next, you know, the next
Area.
stage.
Yeah.
And um, and he Joel's doing that because he's taking care of Ellie. Like
Yeah.
with him probably in the past they kind of said he probably would have been like, okay, well we'll just leave him here and go. Um, but he was kind of like, no, we want to move on. And
Yeah. It's yeah, kind of put closure to the fact that Ellie was pretty close to Sam, and Henry confided in Joel. Even though Joel never really fully opened himself up to it, he still has, like what you're saying, he's also doing this for Ellie to show that this is tradition. This is a good thing to do. This helps just, put an end to that so that we can move on to our next stage of our traveling together.
just
Ellie started to lose her humanity. Yeah.
Yeah,
So at the very end of that, Joel is kind of stuck there, and Ellie was the one that called, like, "Are you coming?" So she's starting to shut herself off now too.
yeah. But she did write the little thing, "I'm sorry," and put it on
Yeah,
Tommy's
on the
grave,
little board. Yeah.
on his little
But
board.
there's nothing she could do. All she did was cut her hand, put her bloody hand on his open wound, but it's not medicine. It's not
She
gonna
was like, "I was
fix
hoping I
it.
could save you," and she just couldn't. She
Yeah.
just like, "I can't do it," but she was hoping she could. And then she's like,
Yeah, yeah, it was like a Hail Mary effort. It was
"Yeah."
something though. You did try.
And so she did try, and that's just kind of like like where she's kind of like, I'm having a hard time with this. And then, you just see her like, "Which way's west?" And just starts walking off, like,
Yeah.
even without Joel, she's just like, I'm heading west now.
Yeah.
And
And after
yeah,
so many feet, then she did stop and be like, "Yeah, you coming?" So it's interesting. What's gonna be the next episode? That's what I'm wondering now. Because they do move through these things very quickly compared to the video game, where it could take us hours upon hours to do this section of one episode. But
it does look like they're getting onto the next one, which will be they've gone across a lot of the country just from their, like, hey, the next episode, um, that they will get to uh, Tommy, get to his brother.
yes,
So that will be
finally.
it'll be interesting. But yeah, like I said, the interesting things to me, obviously, Henry and Sam's death is such an emotional death. Um, I
Very
love
much
that
so.
they gave Sam that he was deaf and he had to do that type of thing. Like, sometimes I'm like, with some stuff, I'm like, well, are they really just trying to push this? But they really made that a good part of the story. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, and he's deaf. It was, this is deeper.
Yeah,
Like, this is deeper. Um, you know, Kathleen's death and Perry's death. Perry died a protector. Kathleen died by getting killed by a child clicker. You know,
I call it just like beautiful, beautiful karma. If
yeah,
you're gonna do a
like
lot of horrible things and not care about, the future of the world, the kids and everything, yeah, yeah, you just have that happen to you. And also, 41 Pop, hello, sir.
so. Um, 41 pop. Uh, but yeah, it was such a good episode. So much that went into it. And like, I find, like, a lot of the stuff I like to go deeper into. It's like, what would you do? How would you react? Why do you think they reacted the way that they did? Because that's one thing, like, this game and this, series and everything, is it does often ask you, what would you do in this situation?
Yeah,
Where it could be a zero sum. Like, you have somebody else dies so that you can live, or
yeah,
so somebody else that you care about can live, or um yeah, and then the constant question throughout this game is, how do you show somebody love? Like,
hmm,
how do you prove to somebody, I guess, prove that you love somebody? And sometimes when you prove you love somebody, you will do some horrible things.
yeah, yeah,
Like, most
very
people,
true.
oh, I would never do that. But it's just like, you can tell sometimes just you truly do love, because you will do horrible things to keep them safe or keep them happy or whatever, like.
Yeah,
And
that's true. So what would you give this episode? A score out
oh
of 10?
gosh, I don't like to give straight tens, even though, like, you know, our there's certain shows. The episode 3, like IGN gave a 10 out of 10. This would be as
Yeah,
close
which
as
both of us disagreed on it, but yeah.
This is about as close to a 10 as I could that I could give. It might not be the perfect 10, so we'll say a 9.75 or something like that.
Man, that 0.25 I just couldn't quite get there.
Yeah, it was like, honestly, it was really good. I think they moved the story along really well.
Yeah.
And really had the character growth that you needed. That it was also needed, like you had the character growth with Henry and Sam that really added to Joel and Ellie's character growth.
Yeah, very true. You got to see that other side to Ellie that we didn't see yet, which was much more of the child side.
Yeah.
Because beforehand she was never really playing. She would try a little bit, talk about Mortal Kombat or just there's a lot of inquiring about how the world was before everything fell apart. But in this one, she got to enjoy what the world is currently in the moment, such as when they were playing soccer together in that little bunker room, or reading comic books together and all that kind of stuff. It was cool. It was really, really cool to see that different side to her, and just how quickly she latched on to the fact that there is another kid here. It's not me surrounded by adults all the time. She got to just, be that younger self. No, really cool. Yeah, myself, I would give this one probably like a 9. I'd want to say 9.5. The hard part is figuring out what do I say I didn't like about the episode. And for that, there was nothing that was boring about it where, I want to, for example, say, take a look at my phone to see, the notifications and go through those real quick. That didn't happen in this episode because the pacing was good. There's lots of action. And the storyline was always really interesting and something where I could relate to it, such as what Henry did for Sam. And then on the other, when you flip the coin over, Kathleen and her view of like, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And in this episode, because I alluded to it in the previous one, that I thought Kathleen was not scary. She had a very like motherly voice. But in this one, it's like after that scene of her with the captives and everything, and how she just had no care in the world. She got what she wanted out of them, and then just murdered them all, or gave the order to murder them all. I was like, okay, I can see it now. And the fact that she was about to shoot Henry much later on, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna do it, isn't she? No. The fact that my heartstrings were starting to be like, I really don't like her. I really don't. But I did like Perry, though. I never had an issue with him. I was just sad to see him die. But hey, the way that they killed him was pretty epic. So yeah, if you guys haven't seen it yet and you're just listening to this, man, you got to check that out. It was pretty epic.
Yeah, it was such a good episode. And yeah, like I said, 1 and 5 have so far just been my favorites. 1 just because it starts the show off so well. That cold open, amazing. Like really sets the standard for sets how the show's going to go. And then they go into that. And this episode, like episode 4 built up so much that episode 5 just said, we're taking this all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
And just they made it a great episode. That's where I'm really like right there, like, do I give this a 10 or do I give it the 9.5? Because maybe they could have done something better. But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think by the time this season is done, then I'll be like, maybe that was the perfect episode in this series. And that's the one thing where, like, I don't know if I want to give it a 10, because what if the next episode is even better?
Yeah.
But and then you can't go like
could be a 10
A plus or A plus plus and so on and so forth. Yeah. But it was great. I love the show, man. Like, I can't wait for Sunday because the next one's going to be on Sunday, right?
Yes.
At
Yeah, they're
the
going to go
normal
back
time,
to regular
6
schedule.
p.m. And then, yeah, same time next week, we'll be reviewing that one.
Yeah. So thank you for coming to this episode of The Last of Us with me, Shell Pop, and
I, the Red Viking, not doing an awkward pause this time.
so thank you for showing up, and that's where we will officially end this podcast.